Well, hi, Ken Marchalinsky again. I'm here in Pittsburgh, north of Pittsburgh. Okay, this is my third tonight. Wow, and I was yawning on the last one. I'm tired, but this I just came across this. Obviously, it's Christmas time. Tom Horn's sitting on your left as you look at the screen. On the right is a man I don't know. He probably I don't know what's on the cup. PT something, praise the maybe L, I don't know. But this rascal on the left with the glasses, that's Jimmy Baker of Jim and Tammy Baker. Yes, they were the someone should just take him out and you see junk seems to rise to the top. Jimmy Baker knows nothing out to do in life. See, he looks different. He's old. He lost his hair. Of course, Tammy died of cancer. And I'm wondering if it was not a judgment, if you ever saw pictures of her before she died. Stupid woman. Poor. And I feel bad for her, though. But if you look at her, you can see, in my opinion anyway, that she was under the judgment of God for what her and this bad person, Jimmy, husband, was doing. And since he's alive and surviving, to me, that tells me he's not a Christian at all. Tammy was. She died of the sin unto death, and because she belonged to God. God will take care of his own. Guys like Jimmy, if he's not saved, they can go forever almost. You know, they get a nice long lifetime of mischief and making money. But he's getting older. And I got to get going here. This is to prove something that shocks me. I mentioned before that this is only 7.5 minutes long. It's about the timing of Apophis hitting the earth in the middle of the tribulation period of 7 years. Now you come back 3.5 years towards us, backwards in time from the middle tribulation of April 13th, 2029. Why? Because we didn't set the date, NASA did. You get smack dab in the middle of a feast of the Jews called Sukkot. And there's Feast of Booths, because it goes by several names. That's what makes Judaism confusing, especially to us Gentiles. They go by different names and blah, blah, blah. I mean, and it's not even a legitimate religion anymore, since they missed and killed the Messiah, their own Messiah. Of course, don't forget the Romans, which is us Gentiles. We drove the nails. We did the whipping. The Jews did the, smart Jews. They like to, they don't like to get their hands dirty. They set them up and took them out. But the Gentiles, as servants to the bad, evil Jews, the bad, evil Gentiles, Romans, did the work. My opinion. Still love the Jews, always do, and always will, and so will God. Don't mess with them. Don't mess with the Jews. Help them out. They're just sinful people like every other sinful person. Enough of that wasting of my time. Jimmy Baker. Oh my, I have to stop. Listen to this. If we're getting raptured out of here, there's a big if. I'm 99% sure, but I have to put a big if. If I was to put a big if, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I would make a big I and come over here a little bit make a big L. See, I told you I was tired. No, a big I, and then I would come over here and make a big F. And make my top of my F like that, and my middle part of my F like that, a little shorter. Oh my gosh. If Apophis does hit on April 13th, 2029, 3.5 years later, we'll be in the middle or at the end. Listen to Tom. He's more specific of a Jewish festival. Don't forget, when Christ was killed, it was on a Jewish festival called Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And what was Christ's death on the cross? Christ's death on the cross was the atonement. It was the Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement. But so it seems to be that Jewish festivals, some of them, especially only biblical ones, and events, Christian events, Judeo-Christian events of the true Jewish faith, and then of Christianity that it evolved into through Christ and the New Covenant, seem to coincide. And this is what this is about, and I'll just get started because I'm getting sleepy.
2025, 2029, and the arrival of Apophis.
Yeah, and by the way, that's where I was trying to hit a moment ago when my old gray-haired brain forgot what I was talking about. The old preacher in me, I preached down a pig trail and forgot what I was even going to say. But the new studio and the new programs that we're filming over there, our very first shows are dealing with this question, how the Jewish feasts are connected to the arrival of Apophis. Well, I
backed up. There was something under explaining who Tom was to prophecy watchers. I don't even know this.
How the Jewish feasts are connected to the arrival of Apophis. Well, I happen to be doing programs last year in the old studio with Derek Gilbert. And while we were talking about Apophis and the wormwood prophecy, I made the case that if Apophis is the fulfillment of the wormwood prophecy, Revelation chapter 8, that would happen in the middle of the Great Tribulation period. And then I made this point. I said, so if you are, and most evangelical Christians, whether they know it or not, are dispensationalists who believe in a 7-year tribulation period, if that's what you believe, and if Apophis is wormwood, then with that being in the middle of the tribulation period, you would count backward 3.5 years to arrive at the beginning of what is called the 7-year Great Tribulation period. Well, while I was saying that, Derek and Sharon, who were interviewing me, Derek is sitting across and he's got his iPad or whatever it is he's using, his MacBook, and he had opened a Jewish calendar, a Hebrew calendar, on his device. And he went 3.5 years earlier, and he literally turned pale. Because 3.5 years earlier, before the impact of Apophis, to the day is the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, we probably don't have enough time for me to explain all the ways in which end times prophecy experts connect the Feast of Tabernacles and the Feast of Trumpets with the beginning of the 7-year tribulation period and the second coming of Jesus Christ. But just suffice to say this. It not only falls into the middle of the Feast of Tabernacles, but literally on the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles in 2025. So just 5 years from now. Why is that important? Because the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles is when the ancient Hebrews, get this,
He's saying 5 years from his date will be the Feast of Tabernacles of 2025. Well, we're months now. Back then, he's talking 5 years away. Now we're 5 months away.
Sacrificed 7 bulls in commemoration of God delivering them from all of the gods of the nations, but in particular delivering them from the gods of Egypt, and in particular, delivering them from Apophis, the ancient Egyptian god of chaos. Literally, that day in antiquity is 3.5 years to the day from when Apophis is going to strike the earth, is when the Hebrews will be celebrating how God in antiquity delivered them from Apophis. So is God going to deliver his own people 3.5 years earlier? 10 days before that is the Feast of Trumpets, which is also connected to the second coming of Christ. Why? Because the Apostle Paul drew a parallel to the Feast of Trumpets when he said, at the last trump, so during the Feast of Trumpets, the shofar is sounded 100 times. Paul says, at the last trump, the dead in Christ shall rise. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. But get this, in 2025, 120 days before that is the Feast of Pentecost. And in biblical numerology, the number 120 is the number of the end of mankind. God said in Genesis, my spirit will not always strive with man, for his years will be 120. And that set the pattern for that to be the representation of the end of mankind. Of course, Moses was also a parody of that, in that he died at 120 years of age. So all of these highly important Jewish feasts that are connected to the second coming of Christ are absolutely connected 3.5 years earlier to from the impact of Apophis, which I believe is the fulfillment of the wormwood prophecy of Revelation chapter 8. One more final thing, because we totally are not going to have time to talk about this. The ancient Essenes, the inhabitants of Qumran. Lots of people, they know the Essenes from the Dead Sea Scrolls that were discovered there in the 1940s. What they don't know, and by the way, this has only been unearthed in the last 50 years, archaeologists have also recovered prophecies that the Essenes made, and even material that illustrates who the Essenes were. 150 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, the Essenes began prophesying about the first advent of the coming of the Messiah. They said that he would come at a time when a king named Herod would be a king and he would turn evil. They said he would die in the year 32 AD, which is what scholars believe exactly happened. They said he will die not only for Jewish people, but he will be sacrificed for the Gentiles as well, and give birth to an age of grace that would extend for a period of 2,000 years. The list literally goes on and on. We're going to produce a documentary film in 2021 about all of this. But why am I bringing this all up now? Because they also prophesied this, that mankind, now this was over 2,000 years ago, these highly accurate prophets called the Essenes who lived in Qumran, they predicted that mankind will enter its final age. Guess when? In the year 2025. So that list goes on and on. People need to get these books from you, because I predict that we are in a countdown now. And in fact, we're going to produce a book about that too that we'll have out in 2021 sometime. And I won't give you the title to it, because somebody else would steal the title then and throw out a cheap version of the book just by listening to what I'm talking about. So right now it's top secret information, but there are a massive amount of indicators that 2025 is a pivotal year that the world needs to be paying attention to.
Well, there's Jimmy Baker and his new wife, huh? What a looker. See their estate? That's part church, I think, part home. And that's their empire. You should see it from above. I don't know how many acres the Jimmy Baker show. Jimmy Baker and his pretty little wife. Wonder what she did before they met. But, got together. And Oh, well, let's see. Well, it's supposed to be an older shot here. He's bald. Oh, well, I can't complain. I'm wearing my cheap man's or poor man's toupee. By the way, I coined that, I think, myself. I don't mean to, but claim such things. But about 40 years ago, I noticed that every guy that was going bald wore a hat, and his hat made him look better. That's just all, including me, as I lost my hair. Fun, and lead guys, come to Christ. Trust Him as your Savior. Ask Him to save you. He will. For the asking. Realize that He paid. Recognize that He paid the price on a cross brutally for you. And He rose again from the dead. And say, Lord, take me to heaven. Forgive me. And then believe He will for the asking. You Christians out there, please talk to your people. Talk to your friends. Okay, listen, if you're born again, really, you're out of here in 4 months. You're going to leave these poor people behind. Don't you understand? Now, I'm an evangelist. I'm here. You know, someone make a comment. Ask me. Some of you have a card of mine. And let's see. I have one real close. A little while back, I have to make goodbye, Jim and Tina, Jim and whoever. It's just Jimmy. Don't use her name anymore. Okay, come on. Let's go. Close up here. Still running. Let's make it bigger. Hard to do. You know, sometimes I wish the Lord made me rich instead of just good looking. How about you? Feel that way? I mean, looks is fine. I mean, handsome or beauty. I mean, money would be nice to have too. Yeah, don't you think? Okay. Well, it's big enough. Yeah. Why am I showing you this card? Oh, I'll show it to you another time. I'm going to end this. God bless you, folks. If you're saved, be happy. I mean, we're in Lake Flint, baby. And let's see. 1/4 the freckle right here. Time short. All right, I'll see you later.